Mayor already called the meeting to order. I'd like to just take roll call at this point. Councilmember Barajas?
Here.
Councilmember Barrera?
We are here.
Councilmember Diorigo? Present. Councilmember De La Rosa?
Here.
Councilmember Salazar? Councilmember Sandoval?
Here.
Mayor Donahue?
Here.
Thank you.
Even though Councilmember Ferrer says we are here, you only get one vote.
All right. With that, we are going to take public comment only up until 9:30. I see we have a full house, which we're excited about, so welcome to our strategic planning session. So can I get a show of hands, how many people are planning on speaking?
1, 2, 3.
Okay, if that's really, all right. So, a couple of things. We are going to stop at 9:30. I'm going to give everyone a minute because I can tell there are people sitting on their hands. And public comment pertains to the strategic planning session, not miscellaneous, but your comments as to the session and what we're going to do today. So with that, I'll open it for public comment. 1 minute.
About to go clean weeds in the yard, so I want to make it quick. Ron Cheshire, IBW Local 234, Electricians Union, Government Affairs Director. Many months ago, the city of Salinas was shocked when across the headlines, across the nation, basically stated that Salinas was very unaffordable, least affordable in California. Housing and economic development. These are things you need to concentrate on, along with everything else. I mean, it all ties together, folks. But economic development, you need to become more diversified. You need to throw workforce development in on that. If you don't have a good workforce, if you don't have the people that can do the jobs, that can make the wages, that can live in the community, that can have a decent home, that can raise a family, you have trouble. Housing, it's been an issue around here for years. Just talk to Anna Caballero about it. Okay, so anyway, we'll do whatever we can. I live on the peninsula, and I'll fight like hell to support you over here because I know you need housing, and we'll fight those no-growthers that keep plaguing you in this area. Thank you very much.
I caught a comment in there, so you got to keep talking.
Okay, good morning. I'm Eloise Shim, and I'm also on the city's Historic Resources Board. So I hope that this session sheds some light on the historic buildings that are in Salinas Chinatown, because Salinas Chinatown has been in existence since the 1800s. In fact, it moved from Market Street, where they had the first farm workers service center, over to Soledad Street. And the buildings that are there have been neglected. One of them is on the National Registry, and there's just a handful really of buildings in Salinas that are on the National Registry. So one of the other buildings is up for rebuilding and restoring, and I really hope that that is accomplished.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next.
Mi nombre es Jesús Verduzco, vivo actualmente en el distrito 3, entonces viviendo allí yo manejo seguido por la calle Alizal y la calle Central. Entonces hay una calle allí que comunica las dos y me llama la atención porque hay una escuela elemental allí y es la calle Capitol, y sería bueno que se pusiera atención en esta calle y en otras cerca de allí en un futuro no muy lejano. Gracias.
My name is Jesus Velasco and I live in District 3. I drive frequently on Alisal Street and Central Street, and I see that there is a elementary school there. So I think that we have to pay attention to that. In the Capitol Street.
Mi nombre es María Chávez y vivo en el Distrito 4. Les agradezco mucho lo que están haciendo sobre las servidoras. Pero queremos algo permanente, ya que empiezan otra vez en las noches. Se mira el tráfico, se mira que de repente dan la vuelta rápido, así se van como que algo. Los que vivimos ahí tenemos miedo de que pues aparte de eso hayan otras cosas allí, de que se estén haciendo las personas malas. Entonces pido por favor que haga algo que de plano lo quite eso. Gracias.
Yes, my name is Maria Chavez and I live on District 4. And I thank you for all you're doing to help us with the sex workers. It has gone down, but we need something more permanent because we still see some activities at night. We see some cars that come and swerve quickly. There's traffic, and we're afraid that worse things can happen. So we need a permanent solution.
Buenos días a todos, la mesa directiva. Mi nombre es Víctor Mora, vengo del Distrito 2. Ayer andamos haciendo una visita por la área y en la calle Wormwood Street 404 fue PG&E a cortar un árbol porque estaba estorbándole los cables y dejaron toda la basura ahí, está completamente, no limpiaron. Queremos que pongan un poquito más de atención de eso y como tenemos poco tiempo, recordarle al departamento de policía que esté más activo en las zonas escolares porque a veces el tráfico está muy rápido. En todas las escuelas, no nomás, inclusive en una escuela. Y eso es lo más principal que tenemos. Y en la avenida Montebella deberían de poner unos topes porque ahí pasa la gente exagerado del tráfico. Y tenemos poco tiempo, como les acabo de decir. Gracias y esperemos que hagan su trabajo.
Good morning, my name is Victor Mora and I'm from District 2. And we were on 4-4 Midway and we saw that PG&E came and did some repair work. They cut a tree, but they didn't clean it all. They left everything there. It was really dirty. So we have to pay attention to those things. Another thing that I want to ask the police is to please control traffic. People tend to speed, and it happens mostly in school zones. So I would really ask them that there's some areas, the school areas, that the police have to pay more attention. And also in Montebella, people tend to speed there, so we should put some speed bumps there. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Mayors and members of the council. My name is Yahaira Lorenzo. I am resident of District 6. I am here to ask for your help. In the past month, we had an accident in our apartment where one of the sprinkles from the ceiling burst out, which caused flooding in my unit. Walls and carpet were fully damaged. We were asked to temporarily leave the unit with 1 week notice. Our renter's insurance were not able to accommodate us with a living hotel or nor for a storage to store our items. Unfortunately, we were obligated to sleep in the car for a whole week while my mom was figuring out where to sleep. A lady offered us a room to sleep in there. Bathroom and kitchen were not allowed for us to use. However, for the remainder of the time we were there, the lady charged us $1,000. There were times where we did not have anything to eat. My family and I were not officially stable since my mom is a field worker and does not have a job. The rent money for February is still being owed and we are approaching the end of the month. A new month is coming down the line and I still cannot afford to pay the rent money we owe. I am having to speak for my mom since this has brought me frustration and lack of concentration at school. I truly believe that this is not fair for my family nor my young nephew to go through this. We need more housing assistance and support field workers. Thank you for taking your time and listening to me. I trust that you will do everything possible to help me. I'm sorry.
First of all, thank you so much for having this. My name is Rose Clark. I'm from District 3, but my heart belongs to the whole city of Salinas. Since my whole family came here in 1948, and we're still here, well, I'm the last one here. But I want to thank every single one council member. Thank you so much for being here, for doing this for the public. My biggest concern is for equity. South Salinas, North Salinas, East Salinas, the whole group, that's Salinas. I'm a realtor. People in the peninsula are afraid to come to Salinas, where it leads me to public safety. To me, it's the most important thing. Thank you very, very much for being who you are, but the most important thing is if we don't have public safety, we don't have a city. Thank you so much.
Hi, good morning. Wes White, Salinas Monterey County Homeless Union, also part of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, NAACP Political Action Chair for Monterey County. Talking about sweeps, I remember McShane saying it was their #1 priority, and the way it sounded more like a euphemism because the function of how it's going is you're not even posting a notice now. The state still has to post a notice. So why isn't the city? Are you following state law? Are you trying to connect with the Coalition of Homeless Service Providers to make fruition of housing rather than just obliterating? We had encampment resolution funds, but apparently that's not really the practice we're following very often. Only once or twice on 2 sites that I know of in Salinas, and everyone else is just driven out. If homelessness is our #1 priority, is housing them more of a priority or keeping them on the run like it's Black Wall Street to Trails of Tears? So let's actually support people. These are our poorest residents among us, and they deserve a quality of life improvement.
Buenos días a todos, gracias por hacer posible esta reunión, ¿verdad? Y quiero agradecer por darnos la oportunidad de hablar. Para mí, mi nombre es Nidia Soto, trabajo con BHC, construyendo comunidades saludables. En mi experiencia, la ciudad ha mejorado mucho en el esfuerzo con todos los departamentos. Ayer estuvo mi hija en un party y miré que la policía estuvo haciendo su trabajo completamente bien esforzado. Y quiero agradecer eso, quiero agradecer al Departamento de Desarrollo de Obras Comunitarias también por todo su trabajo que han hecho, y estamos aquí la comunidad compartiendo sobre calles, sobre la seguridad pública, sobre la necesidad de vivienda, sobre todos los temas que nos importan, porque nos importa la ciudad, nos importa nuestra ciudad, y estamos en la mejor manera y disponibilidad para ayudar a que esto sea mejor, a tener un mejor Salinas, y gracias por esto.
Yes, good morning to everyone. Thank you for the meeting. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to talk. My name is Nidia Soto, and I work with BHC. And I really have seen how the city has improved. I have seen this improvement in every department. For example, yesterday my daughter went to a party, and I saw that the police activity was very active. I also want to thank the Department of Community Development, and everything has really improved. And we're all here because we care about our city, we care about our community, we care about our streets, we care about public safety and housing. So this is our city, and this is why we're here, because we want a better place to live.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Sofía Alvarado y vivo en el Distrito 1. Y pues quiero dar las gracias por darnos la oportunidad de venir a dar nuestras opiniones, ¿verdad? Porque nos inquieta pues todo lo que está pasando en la comunidad o en todos los distritos, ¿verdad? Pero mi prioridad es darle las gracias a la policía, más que nada al departamento de policía, porque a veces uno pide alguna ayuda o algo y están al instante para apoyarnos, ayudarnos en cualquier cosa, ¿verdad? Y yo pido por favor que ahí en mi distrito pues haya un poco más de vigilancia, porque hay las gangas rayan mucho las paredes de los departamentos, las calles, todo, ¿verdad? Y hacer más parques creativos para que el dinero de la comunidad de los hispanos se quede aquí mismo en la comunidad y no tener que ir a otro lado a dejar el dinero, ¿verdad? Pudiendo quedarse aquí mismo en nuestra comunidad, porque es nuestra comunidad, ¿verdad? Y pues es todo. Muchas gracias.
Good morning. My name is Sofía Alvarado. I'm from District 1. And first of all, I want to thank you for this opportunity to be able to give this opinion. Well, I think we're all going, times are not easy. We're worried about a lot of things. But I do want to ask, I want to thank, the police, because I see that they help us. The minute that we call them, they're there. They're very quick in coming and supporting us. But we need a little bit more police vigilance in this area, because where we live, there's a lot of gang activity. They're putting graffiti on the walls and all that, so we need the police to come more often to our district. Also, I would like to ask for more parks or more recreative activities in our community, so that way we can stay and spend the money here and we don't have to go to other places, because this is our community, so we should spend and leave our money here.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Anything else?
All right, public comment? Gone, and thank you everyone for taking the time to join us this morning. We appreciate all your comments. All right, with that, we will shift to the main event, what everybody came for. I just want to, again, quickly thank and welcome all of you for showing today. It does indicate your concern about the city and the direction we're all trying to go. We all want the same thing, and hopefully today, getting the new council, this edition of the Salinas City Council together, this go around, is a step in that direction. So we think it's an important meeting. We're glad you're here. And so beyond the welcome, I know the entire council joins me in that, and I'll turn it over to the city manager to set the stage.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thanks, everybody. We're going to do a couple of things. We're going to quickly, with the department heads, we're going to go over our current strategic plan and what's been sort of accomplished. And every department is going to spend a few minutes on a slide, and then we're going to turn it over to our facilitator, Reva Feldman, who's now going to work with the council. It's really the council's meeting. So we really hope everybody engages, questions, discuss, get your thoughts. We're going to break it, working with the mayor, and our facilitator, we're going to break this over 2 sessions. So this is the first session, and then we'll come back in March. By the time you come back in March, you would have got a first look at the mid-year, sort of your first deep dive into the budget that we have today. So that maybe helps inform your direction and really course that you want us to follow in the upcoming years. So this is a starting point. It doesn't mean that we're going to obviously accomplish everything tomorrow, but this is a starting point to kind of move us forward. I also want to take advantage of opportunities as they're here. Our new Assistant City Manager, Lisa Murphy, she's in the crowd. So she officially starts on Monday, but and then my new Executive Assistant, I saw Whitney out here somewhere, but she's there right there. So, I just thought, we talked a lot about vacancies and stuff, so we're sort of putting the team together. So with that, I'd like to move forward to our current strategic goals very quickly. You've seen them: economic development, housing, affordable housing, infrastructure, environmental sustainability, public safety, youth and seniors, and effective and culturally responsive government. So that was our strategic plan from 22 to 25, where the department heads are going to spend a little time, kind of what we've done, what we've accomplished, things that we have to go, and kind of what we've done with these goals, kind of, what happened over the last few years. So, I just kind of want to, and Council, I just want to run through this real quickly, and then we'll turn it back over to you, then Reva. So our next slide, Sophie.
So the current strategic plan was adopted in April of 22. So looking at all of the council actions between that time to date, there were 890 council actions, and this slide here shows the percentage of how each of those actions align with the current strategic plan. So effective and culturally responsive government was number 1. Public safety is second. I do want to point out, though, public safety is a combination of fire, police, and also infrastructure projects and improvements to keep our community safe through design. And then we have infrastructure and environmental sustainability, and then the other 3 as they fall.
So moving forward on the city manager's office, you've kind of seen we're out there on the budget sponsorship policy, so we're out there right now. There's going to be a community budget meeting coming up, so that's moving forward. Monterey One Water Conveyance and Treatment Fee, that was done. We are looking at really engaging with this council on sort of the future with our relation with Monterey One Water, so that's going to be important. Obviously, ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, I'm very pleased to report that the city departments, we spent every dollar. No dollar was returned back to the federal government, which I think was good. So a lot of great things were accomplished. We're re-energizing the engagement. From an organizational perspective, not only do we look outward, but we have to look inward. We are a large employer with over 600 employees, full part-time. And so it's important to engage with the workforce itself. Looking forward, I'm told we're going to have our new offices very soon. And so the council and the mayor will get your offices. So that's moving forward. We are bringing in, and just the way this is aligning, Sustained Innovation Leadership Training, so we'll be bringing some training to the organization about how to sustain innovation. And so really, it's a culture. You've heard me say a lot about resetting the culture, but we need to align the culture to your council direction and views, so we need to have an organization that supports your vision. And then, I know John Arriaga, one of our lobbies at the state level, is here with us. We're in constant communication with our federal lobbies as well, legislative program development. So part of what we want to do, working with the council, is be more intentional, having a legislative platform. And what that allows us to do is respond to things that happen at both the state and federal level, if they fit the platform. So we don't have to come back to you and wait for a meeting to ask for authority for a letter or whatever, work through the mayor and get all that done. So the legislative program, and I know the city has done this in the past, will give us the direction that we need moving forward. So going on to our next, I'll turn it over to Patty.
Thank you. So for the city clerk's office, we support every single department throughout the city of Salinas, but we work very closely with our city manager and our city council as well. Some of the main initiatives that we've focused on over the last year and moving into the new fiscal year are records management and transparency platform. We do have tried to improve our language access, translating agendas into Spanish, but also working with our finance department in ensuring that our budget documents are translated, and we are looking at also including our social media platforms, also doing translation of a lot of documents. So looking forward to the next year, we definitely will be focusing more on the language access policy, supporting our city council commissions and onboarding support to make sure that we have successful volunteers on all our commissions and boards. And then of course our contract management platform is one of the main components. We do a lot of work with different organizations, different nonprofit organizations, but also through our vendor and procurement. We need to streamline our contracting process so that it's more efficient for all our departments. And then this past last year, we did we did conduct our general municipal election with 5 council seats. That's probably the first, the most seats that since I've been here that we've ever gone to council with. And we're definitely looking forward to that. And we did support the polling for the extension of the Measure G, the sales tax, and we'll be still continue to work forward with those efforts into the next fiscal year.
All right, moving on to community relations and communications. We've been really focusing on a communication and engagement strategy, which is a way to set the baseline for community engagement and how we do it across the city. We've also been expanding our youth programs. We had our first youth internship program that was paid last year. The podcast, if you haven't tuned in, Salinas Now, great new tool to get information out there. We've also been trying recruitment in a different way with recruitment videos that are produced in-house. And also expansion of our communication reach. So I have some numbers up there. So in a 12-month period, you can see how many millions of people we've reached, and that's just over Facebook and Instagram, across all of our social platforms. That does not include the reach that we're getting through LinkedIn, Nextdoor, and our other communications channels. We have an email text message platform. So over just over a year, we have increase the number of residents that have signed up to receive notifications from the city by 900%. When we first started the email text message platform, it was just over 200, and now we're at well over 2,500. So looking forward, we have the Measure G tax ballot measure that's going to be coming up, and so there will be a lot more education and information about Measure G, how it impacts our city, or how it allows us to provide services for our community. And then also looking at community relations to our internal community. So our city staff are also part of our community, so we're establishing a leadership development program for staff.
Good morning. Lisa Brennan, Community Development Director. Over the past several years, we've been focusing on the general plan update, and the City Council received an update on where we're at and how we're bringing that home this year in 2025 in January. The next step, looking forward, will then the opportunity to really streamline processes for planning and permitting through the comprehensive zoning code update. In 2019, the City Council adopted the Alisal Vibrancy Plan, which is a living document that we continue to implement. The major accomplishment was the adoption of the District Identity Master Plan for the Alisal, and the next step will be here this spring launching a facade improvement program, providing grants to businesses to improve their signage, window treatment, etc. The Community Development Department is front and center in processing plan, permitting, and inspection of major projects, which includes the Amazon Distribution Center, improvements at Northridge Mall and the former Sears site, tentative map for the central area specific plan, as well as multiple city facilities. You're supporting renovations at City Hall, renovations at Fire Station 1, and multiple city parks. We also are focused on other major projects. Our role is site development, pre-development. And so in Chinatown, we are going to be focused, have been, and will continue to focus on site assembly and pre-development activities in Chinatown. And that includes the council approved a contract for updating the historic survey that would take a look at all our historic assets in our community, including Chinatown. We also have been active in implementing the recently adopted stabilization ordinance, which went into effect in January.
Thank you, Selena Andrews, Finance Director. Some of you may have seen the financial forecast model that was presented at the Finance Committee. There are some challenges that were identified, but there's also some opportunities. So our role is going to be to continue to work and identify those opportunities so that we can balance future budgets. Another item is to ensure audits are completed on time. We have various financial audits that we have to do each year, and we're working towards getting those done ahead of time because they also help inform the next budget process, and that's one missing piece that we've had for quite some time now. We're also working on reformatting the budget document to include greater transparency for this council and for the community. So we are looking to identify areas that can be improved, and we think that you're going to be very happy with some things that are going to be coming up. So I look forward to sharing all that with you. We also need to fill some critical vacancies. We have had for some time some vacancies. We filled them, but we're still working to onboard staff, and we continue to have those critical vacancies in highly technical accounting positions. So we really need to work on those in the coming year. And we continue to institute accounting and finance policy procedure best practices, and that's throughout citywide. So we are also working with all city departments on that. And we are working on an IT work plan that our IT manager created in collaboration with all of the departments here to identify their IT infrastructure needs or IT projects. And so we will continue to work through those and get through as much as we can in this fiscal year, and then identify anything for the future fiscal year.
Good morning, Sam Klemick, your fire chief. Our efforts over the last couple of years really center around elements of the fire department master plan. In 2019, we did a comprehensive community risk assessment And then in 2023, created our fire department master plan, which is really the kind of the roadmap we're using for everything we do, decisions we make. Some of our projects and initiatives are, as Lisa mentioned, our Fire Station 1 renovations that started off with the use of ARPA funds that were meant to deal with deferred maintenance around all of our facilities. Station 2 and Station 3, both built 1951, 1957. A lot of deferred maintenance out there. We decided to focus on taking the station renovations and addressing these in chunks so we can get the most bang for our buck. So Fire Station 1 is getting a top to bottom renovation with all of that ARPA money and some other blended funding in CIP. We're also focusing on growing with the community with Fire Station 7 in the future growth areas, this is one of our very top priorities. Working toward acquiring the land at the Rhonda and Natividad area for that fire station. That really is a second major station, similar to Station 1, and it really, as the city grows, especially out into the periphery, is really tough to start meeting our response times with full fire responses because those are resource intensive activities. So really focusing on making Fire Station 7 an adequate station to serve all of that future growth area. The other part of that strategic plan and that master plan was deploying additional unit hours by putting Fire Engine 7 on the street today ahead of the building of Station 7. We rely on mutual aid over 150 times a year to come help us deal with concurrent calls. We have a fire problem in Salinas. We have about 5% fires compared to the national average of 2 to 3%. And those are resource intensive calls requiring multiple units engaged for multiple periods of time. But the problem is vehicle accidents don't stop, medical emergencies don't stop, all the other calls don't stop while those are going on. So we rely on mutual aid extensively to come and back us up. And that is getting to a critical mass where we have really got to focus on putting more available unit hours on the street today, which is the point with Engine 7, is getting staffing in place so we can have that unit and we can pilot it in different ways to see what best suits the community to address our response times. Right now our response times are above the national average. Our travel time is 8+ minutes and the national average for an EMS response is 4 minutes. So as traffic calming, as congestion, as all the elements of the city come into play, we really are struggling to keep our units available. And this is the point with Engine 7, is to get it on the street now. We want to demolish and relocate our fire training facility, which is way past its useful life. Centralize that facility to have firefighters, again, in a better position while they're trained to be able to respond to the elements that are going on in the city. And looking forward, we still are looking at making sure deferred maintenance is addressed, repairs at all the fire stations, and expanding our fire prevention division and restructure based on our community risk. That was a big part of our master plan, was the prevention element, business inspections, basically making a safer community and having enough staff to be able to accomplish that work and reduce that fire volume. That is the sole focus of this, is reduce that community risk, and then also replacing our aged fire apparatus. Since the pandemic, our lead times to buy a new fire engine have gone from about 12, 13 months to over 60 months. We've ordered a ladder truck and fire engine. Now it takes about 5 years to get one of those from time of order to being delivered. So it's a difficult problem for us right now because we have a fleet that gets run very, very hard and we have to keep it on the road. Also, lastly, looking at relocation of our existing fire stations. I talked about congestion and growth. I talked about Station 2 being on the busiest intersection in the county at Laurel and Main. We looked at moving that station. We looked at moving some of our other stations, looking based on what some of these other plans and other initiatives in the city might do to our response times in an effort to keep those response times safe.
Good morning, Marina Horta Gallegos, Human Resources Director. Our team consists of 10 staff that oversee recruitment, classification, employee benefits, employee leaves, performance training, among various other things. Some of the things that we really focused on during the past year was a workplace violence prevention plan. This was in compliance with Senate Bill 553, which went into effect July of last year and required that by January 1, 2025, we have a policy in place that provided for implementation and tracking, investigation of workplace violence incidents. This is a working policy that we are having to update on an ongoing basis as events come up, and we have to have this policy in place, available in writing to all city employees. So fortunately, we did get the policy put in place in a very short window, record time for us. Next, labor relations is something that we work on every year, and it includes things like meeting with our labor groups, labor management, new employee orientation, meet and confer, negotiation with our bargaining units. Those things are functions of typical functions of human resources, but they do consume quite a significant amount of time, and it's just something that's ongoing, and we will continue working on that going forward. Our office supports all departments in employee recruitment and retention, performance management, assisting departments with performance issues, and looking at developing job descriptions and looking at org structure. Given the challenges with recruitment in the past few years, our office has spent a significant amount of time working with departments trying to address these activities, and will continue to do so. In this next calendar year, we're working on an occupational medical clinic request for proposal, evaluating our OCMED clinic that provides pre-employment physicals, follow-up examinations for work-related injuries, and regular mandated screenings for our employees. We want to ensure that city employees have the best quality service in our area, so that's something we're currently working on. Our personnel manual is outdated, and it's something that we are looking to update along with policy development. Laws change every day, and that's one of the biggest challenges, keeping up with all of the changes in law, making sure that our policies are updated. Some of the policies that we're currently working on are an ergonomics policy, a telework policy, and we have a number of other policies that are in various stages. And lastly, one of the things that we're focusing on for this year is employee onboarding. During 2024, we onboarded 146 new employees. That's full-time and temporary. And by onboarding, we mean going through all of their new hire documents, their benefits enrollment, policy review. And that, if we take into account 146 employees, on average, if we spent 1 hour with every single employee, that's almost 4 weeks just performing one function. So we're really looking at revamping our onboarding process and looking forward to all of these changes. Thank you.
Good morning, Chris Callahan, your city attorney, and as your HR director mentioned, laws do change every day, which is why your city attorney's office is so important to you. And so we are in a unique position in that we do provide a support role to your city manager and the city council and all of your different departments. And so we are very proud of the work that we do in supporting them bring these initiatives and these policies forward. So one of the projects that we're particularly proud of, working very closely with the Community Development Department, is the rent stabilization program. Whether you agree with the policy or not, I'm very proud of the technical work that went into that. A lot of robust effort to reach out to the community. Community engagement is something that we're very proud of. And so looking forward, again, working very closely with your community development department, we have the future growth area that we will see come to fruition finally after 20 plus years this year as we start to see sticks in the ground. Working very closely with your finance department, the purchasing policy and the purchasing ordinance are very, very outdated. We're looking to find ways to bring efficiencies and streamline processes with respect to the city's purchasing policies. The municipal code is long since needing an update, particularly the zoning code, and we're going to continue the effort to modernize our municipal code. The zoning code will be a complete redo as we bring the general plan amendment, an update forward. Two significant pieces of litigation that we would like to see resolved this year are the Project Home Key litigation, the 3 Project Home Key sites in the city. We want to see that litigation resolved this year, as well as the Amazon litigation, so that project can move forward unfettered. The personnel manual, as you've heard, is very, very outdated, as well as our policies, and that's something that we want to put a lot of attention to and get that finally updated this year.
Good morning, everyone. Kristen Lundquist, your Library Community Services Director. As you may be aware, the City Council adopted a Parks, Recreation, and Libraries Master Plan in 2019, and that plan identified $176 million worth of infrastructure needs. And so we've been looking at grants and other opportunities, both through state and our federal partners, so that we can move some of these projects forward. The construction of the new Hebron Family Center has started. It is nearly a $14 million project, and we're expecting to open in December of 2025. That project was kicked off by a state allocation thanks to Speaker Reva's office. We've also been leveraging American Rescue Plan Act funds as well as Community Development Block Grant funds. We expect to break ground on the Foster Park revitalization project next month. That project was initiated through a state parks grant, Prop 68, and so we have a $6.8 million grant that's really helping to push that forward. In addition to the park renovation, we're also working on a ADA restroom renovation, and that item will come to council on Tuesday. We're looking to award the contract for those renovations. We've also been focusing on our playgrounds. And in addition to doing repairs across the system, as well as surfacing improvements, we've installed 2 brand new playgrounds at Steinbeck and Natividad neighborhood parks. We're also currently in the permitting process and nearing the completion of that process for 2 universal playgrounds that will be located at Northgate and Williams Ranch. Over the last 3 years, we have focused and really leverage existing funding so that we can put $3 million worth of improvements into our playgrounds. We've also done a lot of work at Cesar Chavez Park to include irrigation, replacement, and repairs. We've installed, thanks to a partnership with the Public Works Department, an artificial turf soccer field, and through a Prop 68 per capita grant, we were able to improve the walking paths at that area. So we're really focusing on trying to uplift that park as well. In the coming year, we're going to be looking at a refresh at John Steinbeck Library to include some new flooring, potential study room there, and that really came to fruition because of a wonderful community member that many of you may be aware of, Marlis Mayer. She donated a significant amount of funding through her estate that's going to help us bring that forward. As we look at all of these improvements, we have to think about ongoing maintenance, right, and how we're going to care for these facilities. And I really think that it's a multi-pronged approach that includes city funding, but also leveraging our community partners and our volunteers in the community to help us keep these facilities at the pristine level that they'll be once we accept all of these projects.
Good morning, Carlos Acosta, your Chief of Police here in Salinas. So a couple of things that we have been working on in the last year or so with community engagement and our youth diversion programs. Right, building relational equity is really important and one of my top priorities. And it's going to be department centric, not just the police chief. We want to really engage all of our community while focusing on our core delivery and service delivery model. Communication, we are in the process of building a new website that allows us to really highlight a lot of the great things that we're doing within the city, whether it's through our Salinas Police Outreach Team, community engagement, outreach, education. Anything that we're doing outside of enforcement activity allows us to really engage the community in a positive way. In the process of hiring or looking to hire a community specialist that will help us message a lot of the good things that we're doing and a lot of the things that we are looking for the community. It's a two-way communication to really truly understand the needs and wants of the community. This is one way we can do that. And also focusing this type of messaging allows us to be another recruiting tool for how we build our organization, not just on the sworn side, but on the professional side as well. With our recruitment, look, we need to build the department, but we just don't want to grow because we need to grow. We need to find the right people in the right places. And we're being really intentional how we recruit here internally within the Salinas community. The picture there you see is Andrew Carrillo. He's been a cadet for 6 years and really wants to be a police officer in the city of Salinas. So now, while he's going to college, we are going to hire him as a community outreach assistant. So again, allow us this program to onboard future police officers in the police structure. We're looking to incentivize employees of how we can incentivize their efforts to recruit, not just on the professional side, but the sworn side. And then moving forward, we have a real-time crime center, which I think we need to maximize technology as a force multiplier. We're in the process of building one. We really need to identify how we're going to staff it, with whether it's a dispatcher, crime analyst, police officers, sworn, professional staff, because we are the hub of Monterey County, right? Salinas Police Department is at the forefront of a lot of technology and how we investigate a crime, how we process evidence, so this is going to allow us to continue those good efforts. Scheduling and time card system, we're in the process of working and installing a new software that allows us to track more overtime. Allows us to track overtime and how we're using that and how we're allocating resources to deal with our vacancies and are we being efficient in that manner, how we can change that process. Computer infrastructure and internet needs, we're trying to improve that to support our future technology needs, whether it's through flock camera, Fuses, Peregrine, a lot of software and programs that allow us really to be at the forefront of how we investigate criminal activity and identify hotspots and areas of concern in the city. And then obviously, the last one is staffing and training, which is wellness, right? I need to make sure that I have a department that's compassionate, that's well-trained, and ready to deal with the complexities of policing in today's modern policing era. And that's professional development, training, wellness. I brought in a psychology doctor to talk to my entire staff, where we had 108 staff members participate with their families about wellness, looking forward to bringing a sleep study doctor and building a chaplaincy program to making sure that, wellness isn't just to our community, but it's also to the department, to making sure that we're ready to serve our community.
Good morning, David Jacobs, Director of Public Works. Normally when I'm asked to do these slides, I normally go to the big projects that we have going on, but there's a lot of stuff going in the background. But just as for instance, Baranda Road is finally breaking ground after 7-8 years of design and trying to get it going, and it's finally actually out there working. We do have sidewalk repairs going on a constant basis. We recently finished 2 rounds of ARPA money for sidewalk programs, but we do have sidewalk crews out there every day doing sidewalk replacements throughout the city. We also have sewer line replacements going on. Again, that was ARPA money. We do have some locations that we knew needed to be repaired, and so we used ARPA money to go out there and do those repairs, and that's ongoing right now. We did recently repaired Independence Boulevard. We went out there and actually stripped off all of the asphalt and replaced it. It was in pretty bad shape, and so hopefully that holds up for a very long time moving forward. Looking forward, we have Williams Road projects. We have 2 grants out there, $24 million worth of funding out there for Williams Road, and we're just now getting that process started. So we're going to have to do some outreach. We're going to have to do some design. We have to do design development on that. So that's going to be a long process over the next year, maybe two years of getting that in place. McKinnon Safe Routes to School project, we've actually put that on hold because of Veranda. But again, we need to do the environmental study and the design on that project. That's putting a roundabout at McKinnon and Hardin Parkway and making that a safe routes to school area. There was a plan or a setup project out there like a year ago, and we got a lot of good feedback on that. And that's part of the reasons why we're able to secure funding for that. And then we actually have a crack filling project that we're awarded, and we're getting a contractor on board to get out there and do that work. But I wanted to mention a couple of things. When the other departments are talking about projects and stuff, it actually impacts public works, because we have to do labor compliance enforcement, we have to do project management, we have to do a lot of different things with those projects that don't necessarily talk about. It's like, oh, there's a project going. Well, we have to oversee a lot of that stuff in the Public Works Department. Another thing that we've done over the last 2 years is we're actually now upfitting PD police cars. And that has saved a lot of money and a lot of time. We're putting those police cars on the street a lot quicker now. Usually it was a 8 to 12 month wait time for vehicles. We get those vehicles in, we get them upfitted 3 to 4 weeks, and they're out on the street. So our crew at the yard is doing a really great job on that aspect, just to let you know that there are other things going on. We're actually working with the industrial waste treatment facility, trying to get that expanded. We actually were awarded WARDA money recently. Don't know if we're going to get it still. We'll see how that moves forward, but that's going to be a big project on my plate to actually move forward with that project. And we're actually finalizing the FEMA projects that we had the 2023 storms. We just did a sediment removal project at the industrial plant. We're going through billing FEMA for that work. Hopefully get reimbursed at the rate they told us. But again, a lot of things going on in Public Works, so if you have any questions, you're always welcome to ask. Thank you.
Before we bring Reva on, I want to allow 10 minutes for council if you have any questions, not comments, but just any questions you may need some clarification on from the various departments. Yes, that was very helpful, very thorough. Thank you for that.
Mr. Jacobs, awesome work, sir. But let me ask you on this Williams Road, because we've been at this for years. And I know, talking at the fire, I was at the fire department yesterday, Station 4. Even the firefighters are saying how bad. It's a dangerous street. With your time schedule, I know we're waiting also, we're working with PG&E, so they can put all the wiring underground. How do you see all that materializing? Because I know we've been discussing this for many, many years, but how do you see it coming to fruition?
Yeah, there's been concerns from MST and the fire department on the actual development of the plans or the layout that was presented for the grant. But we actually need to work through those during the design process. And so we also need to engage the community out there to find out what's going to work for them. I mean, we can go through there and eliminate all the parking along Williams Road, which I don't think will make anybody very happy because it's a very overparked area. So we need to balance parking and fire department needs and MST needs to move forward with a project that makes it safer for the traveling public on that street.
Well, so with that, so just quickly, Mayor, when do these community meetings, when are they going to start taking effect?
Do you know, Adriana?
We've actually already held a number of community meetings when it comes to Williams Road. We are working on multiple fronts on Williams Road. We are working on the LSL Vibrancy Plan, Streetscape Master Plan, and that one held a number of community meetings. So for the project itself, we will be having additional meetings.
And it's going to be, it's like I was telling you before, it's going to be probably a year to a year and a half, over the next year, year and a half of developing those plans and making sure everybody's comfortable with them before it moves further along.
So just quickly, in the meantime, I'm looking at the chiefs, I'm looking at the city manager. That is a very dangerous street. What is it? I know the firefighters were complimenting the police department that when they get out there and enforce traffic, because I was there yesterday. I'm not kidding you. Some people going 50 miles an hour on Williams Road. It's just a free ride right there. So what can we do in the meantime for this year and a half, 2 years, to be able to help, especially with the pedestrians walking those dangerous sidewalks? What are we doing anything at this point?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple things we'll do. I mean, engagement, being out there, being visible is important. Can we be out there 24/7? Of course we can. But I think that we also need to do out some PSAs, right? Put out some press releases or put out some information to the community that this road is not where it needs to be. If there's some infrastructure things that we could do, big yellow high-level signs that we can warn people to slow down. On the enforcement side, I mean, this is something that I will look into to making sure and identify which times and days is most. Is it just every day at 5 p.m.? Is it in the mornings? So that we can try and hopefully change and modify that behavior with speeding.
I didn't hear about the District 5 Rec Center. Do we have kind of a time frame or next steps for that?
Yeah, so thanks to the council a couple years ago, we all know there was $8.1 million set aside in a reserve. We're working right now to bring on a consultant to help us do some initial feasibility study and conceptual design work. But we need to allocate those funds and appropriate them. So we'll be doing that in March, and then we'll be able to kick that process off. It will involve lots of community engagement around the site, potentially at Northgate Park, as well as what are residents looking for from a programmatic standpoint, as well as other amenities in the park. So it's in the works, and you'll be hearing more about that in the coming month.
And on the same line, I had a resident reach out. Do we have an estimated time frame for the park at Northgate Park? The equipment that's going in?
So we are completing the permitting process right now to do that installation. It will also include some ADA pathway, passive travel as well. I believe we have, are expecting the playground equipment March, April-ish timeframe, and then we'll be working to schedule installation, and we're coordinating with Public Works, as David Jacobs mentioned, and Adriana and her team around the ADA improvements, and so that'll be another phase of that effort.
And then for our finance department, we know that we have outdated financial software that makes it difficult to pull data for any requests we receive. Is there a plan, or do we have a time frame for updating that, or are we seeking a new software?
So thank you for asking the question, Council Member. In my observation, working about 18 years in the finance and under financial programs, ERP system, this is one of the newer ones. I haven't encountered too many issues, other than we do need a reporting functionality. And that is something that we are looking into. Any ERP system that you implement is going to require another software to do the reporting for it. So that's something that I am looking into. I don't see any issues with the current system, and I was at a CSMFO conference this past week, and learned a little bit more about the product. It will eventually start being supported in 10 years. So we will have to eventually look into something, but that's not something that we should probably use up our resources on immediately, but I am looking into a reporting software.
And my last question is for the chief. And I'm glad to hear that we're going to be focusing on letting the community know what we're going to be, the good stuff that's happening with our police department. I think a lot of residents are still under the impression that we no longer respond to certain calls. Now, I recognize, we respond on a priority basis, But is there any plans to message the community that, we will be responsive, just obviously we have a priority list? Because the last strong message from our former chief was that we are definitely not responding to calls. And that's not my understanding.
Yeah, no, we are responding to calls, depending on the priority and the type of call, if it's a life-threatening call, or if it's maybe a vehicle that's stalled on a remote highway or roadway. We are responding to calls for service. The message from me to my staff is if somebody calls the police, we're going to respond. And if we're not able to respond in a timely manner, we're going to reach out to that reporting party and let them know why we're not responding or what the delay and why there is a delay. So we are responding to calls for service. Every opportunity that I get, council member, if I'm in a meeting, at a town hall, or even a casual conversation, is when those things come up about our response times. And I want the community to know that they need to reach out to the police officers, and we will respond. Now, moving forward, if there's plans to reach out to that community or specific community, I'm open to that, absolutely. I think it's important that we're transparent in what we're doing and how we're doing it. So I'm open to those conversations or even those meetings moving forward.
Well, thank you, Chief. I appreciate that, because for a lot of folks, they understand, priorities. There's different priorities, but communication is key, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate all your community work. I think I've never seen such an active chief. I wonder when you sleep, but thank you.
No, thank you. And if there's an opportunity to engage, just feel free to reach out.
Mine's, we just heard the residents from, some of the residents from Casa de Maderas, and we know it's been an issue, the lighting. I mean, we need the city to be well lit, bright city, not, dim, and we need lights in that area. So, capital improvement projects, are we gonna see that? What monies went in there? What monies do we have for things like this?
Sure.
The lighting and all that?
So, Councilmember, yes, you'll see what we have, and if this is a priority from the council, we'll bring it back to you in March. So the short answer to the question is yes, we've been having some challenges with people stealing the copper wire. And I know David and the team and Ariana, they're out there trying to replace as quickly as we can. Part of it is just getting the supplies that we need to actually replace it, and then the time to replace.
So my concern would be putting up a new light, maybe a signal light that's needed once the assessment is done around that area.
Sure.
That then we can bring you back in a second.
Correct.
Maybe?
Correct.
Okay, that's my own question.
Okay, Jose, you will wrap it up for us. Good question.
Quick question. Just one quick part, add on to Councilwoman De La Rosa's comment. To community development, do we have an urban lighting master plan, or is that something that we consider pursuing?
So in the Alisal vibrancy plan, it was identified that we needed to do a lighting assessment, so that is on our radar. That is something that needs to be coordinated through Public Works. That piece of infrastructure really falls in their purview, but it's something that, working with the community, we're a partner. And so it is on the radar, as something that we need to find the plans and focus on. And the first step is an assessment. Where is the lighting that's needed, because we're not going to be able to address it all at once. It's going to have to be a phased approach.
Another quick follow-up question was regarding the East Area specific plan. I know it's an agenda item. I saw the agenda already. But just quick question, when are the next community outreach opportunities for engagement on that specific plan?
So this week we had an engagement opportunity for the property owners in that area, and we're having a follow-up meeting with them early next week. And then when we get to more the, after those conversations and we have a final draft, we'll be coming out for community engagement.
What timeline is that?
Late spring.
2025?
Yeah,
early
it's going to be
26?
spring, summer.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, council members for having me. My name is Reva Feldman, and I'm actually a retired city manager. I was a city manager in Malibu, California. I served 16 years in that community, but I spent my whole career in public service. Prior to that, I was the chief operating officer for a state parks agency. And I retired a few years ago, and I have a governmental affairs firm, and I do this kind of work throughout the state of California. So I love working with communities and hearing all of your professional staff give their reports You have an amazing city, you have a great city manager, and you have great professional staff, and you as council members obviously are committed to your community. I do have a little bit of a personal tie here. My stepmother has had a house in Salinas for 40 years, and she loves this community so much that she has refused to rent or sell her house, and she and my father split their time between the Bay Area and here because he's a little set in his ways and he didn't want to move. So I know how special it is here. So again, it's my honor to be here and help you as the council and you, Mayor, talk through what are the things that you all want to do over the coming year and the next few years as well. So I just wanted to start, I know we have some new members of council and obviously community here, and I want to just talk very quickly about the type of government we have. So the City of Salinas has a council manager form of government. What that means is that the residents and the community elect a mayor and a city council. So those are our elected officials, and the role of the elected official is to make the big decisions. Make the laws, set the policies, ordinances, they approve how the money gets spent, and then all of those decisions gets handed over to the city manager, who is a professional manager. You can look at it as the CEO of the city, and the direction that the council takes as a whole hands over to the city manager the authority and the ability to work with his professional staff to make all those things come to fruition. So the things we'll be talking about today are kind of the big level subjects, and then how those things get done, how they get implemented are what the city manager has the authority over. So the city manager is the one who hires the department heads, holds them accountable, they hold their staff accountable, and that's how things get done in the council manager form of government. And I think throughout the United States, I think 20,000 cities have this form of government. So it works really well. The other person that the city council is able to have authority over is your city attorney. And again, you have a great city attorney, long ties to your community, who keeps us all legal. Legal, lawful. So I had the honor of being able to speak to each of you individually, and the one thing that I really took away was how much you care about your community and how much you care about doing the right thing for your residents. And you have shared values, and what I love about local government is that everybody has their own ideas of how things should go, what needs to get done, how we get there, and that I heard from all of you that you want to do that together, and that maybe you'll have different opinions, but we're all going to talk about those opinions and those ideas and then find a common goal to get them done. So using these shared values of equity and inclusion, fiscal responsibility, integrity, responsiveness, and service, we are going to get the things done. That huge work list that you heard your staff talking about that they've been working on, and they're going to continue to work on, and we're going to add things to that workload. The one thing, and you see that listed in green, is transparency. It was something that I heard every council member talk about. I heard your city manager talk about it, and I heard your staff talk about how important that transparency is to the community, to make sure that you understand what is going on, that the community is on board with the things that your local government is getting done. And transparency is a lot of things. It's making sure that everything we do is done in public, in properly noticed meetings, in ways that everybody can hear it. And then it's also the sharing of that information, so the people who couldn't be here today, or the people who don't have time to watch a council meeting or go dig up a newspaper article, that the government is providing that in a transparent and easy way. So again, our vision and values, I mentioned it's a special community. You care about each other, you care about your families, you care about the residents, you care about how people live, and you trust all of that, those important values, to your city manager to make sure that things are carried out. Again, the council manager form of government, it's a team, and we are working as a team. City council is a team, city manager and his staff are a team. I love it. People took pictures of my slides. I can give it to you too. Okay, so we're gonna move on to our plan, and if you have questions along the way, please stop me. You know, this is supposed to be an interactive, shared thing, but you know, I love to talk too, so. What we're gonna do is come up with a plan that meets the needs of the community, that takes each of your individual priorities and assembles it. And so in the prior version of your strategic plan, we had what I would call big buckets and big subjects. It was a little confusing to me in the work that I do. I typically see it done a little differently. And so what I tried to do, listening to all of what you said, is kind of put it out and frame it, some of the things a little differently. Again, we can talk about all that today, and if you have better terms or better terminology or wordsmithing of it, we can change that. And as I believe the mayor said, or the city manager said, we are going to have another shot at this. In a month, I'm going to be back here, and we're going to talk about it again. So this is just getting all these ideas up, and we're going to swirl them around, and then we're going to have the city manager look at the budget, and you're going to talk about your budget, and then you're going to finalize your plan. But it's a plan, and it can change. It can change this year, it can change in 6 months, it can change in 2 years, whatever it is. It's your plan. It's a place for you to start down a path, but we all know life happens, and so that plan might change. So our first bucket, as we call it, is economic development. And so what I did again with this is I took the items that were on your current strategic plan, minus the ones that have gotten done, that your incredible staff have accomplished, all the input that you all gave to me, and came up with what I'm calling 6 goals, 6 big plan items under economic development that your staff can work on this year. And so I just wanted to bring these forward. If I've missed anything in this, anybody have anything they like, they don't like? Anybody?
Is this based off of our last one, or is this based off of our conversation?
Both. Both. So I took the conversations that we had, again, I met with each of you and talked to you, and you shared your priorities. Went through with the city manager what items have been done or have been completed. And then I tried to bring them up to a bit of a higher level. Some of the things that were on your prior plan really are tasks for your city manager to take care of, and they fall under either these bucket type title projects or other areas. But again, I'm a stranger in your community, and so I don't own any of this. This is your plan, and so if I've missed something here that you feel is super important, let's add it on, or if we want to take it off. So yes.
Yes. One thing that I think would be very important to address is kind of the scope of work of the Community and Economic Development Department. I think that, I mean, historically, it used to be under the city manager's office. I'd be interested in exploring either splitting that duty altogether, because I think economic development in and of itself is an endeavor in and of itself, rather than having it all under the same thing. And another component to that would be having a dedicated economic development committee at the city level, modeled after the counties, where it's comprised of both city council members and industry and small business representatives.
Okay, let me pause for a second. What did you want to pull apart with staff? I missed that.
Considering moving economic development either to have it be its standalone department or move it under the city manager's office.
Okay, so I guess, looking at the city manager, is that something that I have consensus on to add, analyzing a standalone economic development department? Is that what I'm hearing?
Or exploring a service agreement, right? Exploring what the most efficient way of moving forward with economic development would be.
Analyze the structure of the economic development services, how about that? Or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this a list of priorities, or this is just a list?
This is the list of priorities for your strategic plan. Oh, is it in order of priority? Right. No, not at all. I just number them so that when we're talking about them, someone can say number 3 as opposed to the bullet, but I can do it in bullets next time so that it doesn't call out that it is not at a priority level. No. They're all very important. Yeah.
And the second component to that was having a dedicated economic development committee.
comprised of both industry representatives and members of the council that can
So like an
advise.
ad hoc committee or a standing?
A standing committee. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how you want to do this. Do you want me
We
to take
can-
consensus on them
I
as we
think it'd be
go?
good. Mayor, I think it'd be good at council to get some consensus when things come up. And then the idea would be, once there's consensus, we'll bring it back. Today, it's not necessarily, it's not a formal adoption, just consensus.
This is
And
just
then we'll-
giving me food for thought and discussion.
And if there's difference of opinions or questions or whatever, this is the time to really engage. So right now, the Economic Development Program is under the Community Development Director. We have been talking about splitting that from CDD, just because of everything that's going on in CDD, and it needs its own attention. And in fact, we've been sort of, what's the best structure for that? So, yeah, that was gonna come back to you anyway.
So I guess in the interest of time, so we don't have to do a roll call on each of those, if any of you are completely opposed to something, why don't you speak up? Otherwise,
I just
I'm
have a quick
gonna
comment.
assume it's okay. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Councilmember Barajas, what do you mean by industry what?
Industry representative.
Now, who do you see an industry representative?
When I think of industry representatives, I think of representatives from either the hospitality industry, whether that's the Hospitality Association, or, and I also mentioned business owners themselves.
Yeah.
So
Do you see any people that, for example, farm workers? They also play a big role. Do you see anybody in that?
At the county, like I mentioned, one model like at the county's Economic Development Committee, which comprises both of industry representatives. They have a seat for labor representatives, and they have a seat for a community representative.
I like
So it's
that.
a very diverse group. There's only two supervisors that serve on that committee, and then the rest is, it's like a group of like 10 to 12 people, right? So it's a very diverse group, and no one industry.
So I will just be the Debbie Downer of the room every time someone has a great idea. Is that just remember with this standing committee, that's a Brown Act body. And so every time we have a Brown Act body, that's additional work for your staff and your city clerk. Because that means that anytime there's a meeting, it has to be noticed, it has to have someone taking minutes, those minutes have to be transcribed. So I'm not saying don't do it, I'm just reminding you that this does bring an additional task and whole big project to your staff. So just a reminder there for you for that.
Well, it sounds like there's a consensus to get this into the city manager's portfolio.
To look at.
To look at, and then based on whatever additional comments there may be, perhaps when we, Renee can, kind of massage it and then come back with a straw man that we can consider.
Sure.
And incorporate it. But
Absolutely.
it sounds like heading it to the city manager's direction is, there's a consensus for that.
And everything we add costs an additional amount of money, even if it's unseen money, it still is a cost because it's staff time and. Do you have anything else? Anyone else on this? Did I miss anything? Okay.
I think in the past, the council has talked about, and it might be in the same realm of Councilor Barajas, but I think we talked about a permit committee as well. I'm not sure what the structure of that, maybe it would fall under that, but kind of track the progress and might fall.
And that may be something like, if the end goal is we need more information on the status of permits, that doesn't have to have a committee. That could be direction to your city manager to find a way to have an easier way to report on the status of permits, and that could be an area of the website or something like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to have a committee. That could literally just be direction to your city manager. So I don't know if that's helpful. Think about it. Okay.
Aurelio?
So as we continue to revise this, or when this comes back to us next month or so, I think one thing that I would definitely want to see is like the separation of our small and like our large economic partners, right? Because when I think about economic development, right, I'm thinking about our small business owners and what we as a city council can do to support small businesses or anything that might be like new. Because those are economic development needs are gonna be much different than the larger sector. So here in Salinas, you know, that is agriculture, and if we were in the city of Monterey, Pacific Grove, Carmel, we'd be talking about hospitality, right? So I just really want to make sure that as we continue to drive and lead the city's department, the city's resources, again, you know, how can we continue to support small businesses at their level? And then also be in tune and be in touch with our larger businesses. Because we have some businesses that, you know, they may, you know, across multiple counties, they may employ 20,000 employees. And so their needs, the support that they need are going to be different than some of our small businesses, like in North Salinas, I think people call it Alice, I grew up calling it East Salinas. And then like our South Salinas merchants, right, our South Salinas merchants.
Understood, yeah. So I think maybe that just could be solved by pulling it out into two different categories that I can kind of massage into small and big, and making sure that we don't lose anybody through
Yeah,
that.
because merging the two together, I think we're gonna
That's
find
all
that
why we
they're
have this
very
discussion,
unique.
so everybody okay with that?
Yeah. Well, I will say that at the end of the day, business is business, and even though the challenges of larger businesses face, everyone kind of starts off as a small business. Very few businesses kind of just start off like as a Google, right? I mean, Google started off, you know, some people in basements and, you know, garages, right? That, right? So everyone kind of starts off in that place. So maybe just really focusing on bringing the different business support ecosystem and making, being more intentional about just educating people. You know, when someone goes into the permit center, we should have things from the SBA, the Small Business Development Center. You should get a package that says, you know, here are all the, you know, the small business financiers, the credit lenders, and things like that for small businesses. Might be different.
I just want to kind of play up what Aurelia was saying on the small businesses, is making sure, and that's why I like it having it with the city manager's direction, because you're responsible for all the different departments, which there's a lot of overlap. And I think the permitting is really important. And number 4, that we get people permitted quicker so they can open their businesses, so they can start generating revenue, because there's a huge investment in the front end to open a business, small business, right? And then, and that way we're supporting them by getting them in business, and then of course the taxes come a lot quicker too. So just streamlining that process.
And I know I said this, and I'm just going to continue to say it because that's what I do, is that, you know, these are the goals. And how the goals get done are handed off to the city manager that's his professional role to do that, and how the budget ties to that. So let's just say when your budget comes back and he has a line item, and I'm making this up, I don't think this is in your budget, you know, to purchase permitting software, just as an example. Well, that could be tied to how you're supporting your small businesses, because it's going to streamline permitting. That's just a very high example. So that's the goal is that, how it gets done is there.
I think the thing I would throw in without seeing the rest of the slides, you know, at the end of the day, the city's not the marketplace. So the city's role is to, and certainly there can be a proactive agenda to attract, diversify, and I think we have to pay, because we have a terrific small entrepreneurial class in Salinas, and I think we have real upside with a lot of our neighborhood business districts that we haven't explored or supported. So I think everything that's been said is really important. But at the end of the day, the city needs to be in the business of promoting economic growth for its own purposes, so we have resources, and ultimately our money makers are property tax. So that means, you know, we're not going to build the houses, but whatever we need to do to get things moving, because we like property taxes. They're going to pay them anyway, so we haven't raised anyone's taxes. That's going to happen. And we like sales taxes. And so that means that we have to be a destination, and more people come, we have more throughput, more sales taxes. And then I think I also think we need to be thinking about, you know, I don't think we're in this era, but I know sometimes cities fall into the temptation, we can fee our way to economic growth. And the answer is fees have to be competitive. and they have to be fair, and they have to stimulate growth. So there has to be a growth mentality, but I think we need to explore, can we open up other fronts? For instance, we're not Monterey, and we don't have 1,500 properties, but do we have some upside on tourism and TOD and those sorts of things? And that might be a potential additional revenue source that we can legitimately grow. So I think we ought to be thinking a little bit about, how we create some upside at the train station. They keep threatening the train will come. By the way, it was going to come in 2014. But assuming that's going to happen, Salinas, I was out of office then, they can't blame me, it didn't come. We need to be thinking about the city's economic growth so we have resources to do all this stuff. So that's the element I would want to incorporate.
At the top of your mind as we go through this.
Well, that's, yeah.
And then if I miss anything, we can add.
Yeah, because if this is the only economic, that's
only economic. Let's see if we capture any of those in the other buckets, and if not, we can come back. How about
that's
that? Okay? All right, yes.
What is the city's role, and what does number 2 mean, complete agricultural technology plan? What is our role in that?
That was on the previous.
It was on the previous.
One, so you can take it
really
off if nobody
industries.
knows.
No, I think it's, so, I don't know if it was, so part of this is to really refine sort of what our role is, right? So we're a convener, we can reach out to partners, we can engage and get their input. I look at sort of a agricultural technology plan as being sort of a subset of economic development and other things. So I think that's kind of the way I'm going to approach it. So part of this is, if this is important, let us know if you think this is important.
And we can take it off too.
We can take it off.
We can add, we can take off. This
You
is your plan.
I know we did do an ag.
Yes, and I think this is maybe not a carryover, I don't know if that's the right word, but like pre-COVID, we were this is right when I was coming to the city, there was a lot of focus on ag tech and becoming a leader in this area. And we hosted the Forbes Summit for multiple years in a row, then COVID hit. And, kind of its focus and prioritization dissipated. So I think this is, okay, what is our plan and what are the opportunities for Salinas to lead in this area was kind of the foundational premise of creating a plan.
Right, because I think that kind of all falls under community development. I mean, if we're going to isolate a particular sector of our economic development, I mean, how are we choosing ag tech as opposed to supporting hospitality or, things like that? I just don't understand our role in creating an ag tech plan.
So here's the thing, when the city goes out, so this is really, why don't we take advantage of opportunities? How do you select? It's what are we good at?
Right.
We are what we are, and we're not what we're not. So that's number one. So for example, we don't have today a ton of thousands and thousands of visitors coming to Salinas for tourism. That doesn't mean that there's an opportunity there, right? We have agriculture, we have a vibrant agricultural sector. So would it be feasible and good for the city to sort of lean into more of that, to develop that sector more? So it's up to you, as a council, what you want us to prioritize on. But whether agriculture is here, so I think that's why it's here. Technology is here. We're 50 miles south of the technology capital of the universe. So can we capture that? So I think it's that. And when you look at our industry, so sort of a smaller example of that is what Cornell College has done with capturing the STEM and the nursing facility that they have. It kind of looked at what they had. We looked at, and you two can get a lot more to this than I can, and this was the strength, right? So it was developed. So it was selected with a natural strength. So is this a natural sort of strength of our ecosystem that we have today? And if it is, can we develop it more to generate more opportunity and more technology? And the other thing I think when you look at ag tech plan, it's more than just ag, because to the extent you're developing a technology in ag, you're bringing other supporting industry and other supporting opportunities. So I think that's the way I would look at it. But you ultimately are selecting what you want us to focus on. But this, to me, is part of the economic development approach.
Yeah, I just didn't understand what exactly our role is gonna be in that. It's a little vague for me.
If I could just add one thing, I think the slant on this is workforce opportunity.
Yeah, okay.
It's not growing an industry per se, but what are workforce opportunities that pay higher wages, that require more technical skills? And the pathway, we're already knocking it out of the park in ag, right?
Right.
That is one of our key industries. So how do we be a leader in how that moves forward, embraces technology? How do we train our workforce to be ready to enter that field and have those opportunities of higher wage jobs?
That makes sense. What was the title you said? Something?
Workforce development and
That makes sense.
opportunity.
Okay, thank you for that.
And you'll have an opportunity to discuss this when the city manager brings the budget forward too, and how these things are getting accomplished. So again, these were carryover combinations of what didn't get done off of the last plan and priorities that I heard from all of you. And so taking a look at these, obviously looking at housing and how it aligns with transit and how it lines up with the city's specific plans. I heard a lot about renter protection, so making sure that what the city has is what you all want, and then making sure that the public knows about that in a great way. Mixed-use development is something obviously very important as our world changes and how we live. Working with our partners to address and reduce homelessness. Looking for opportunities for workforce, low-income, and farm worker housing. Looking at ADUs and senior housing facilities. Did I miss anything? Anything you don't want to do? And then how that all gets done, Mr. Mendez will figure out, hopefully. Yes, sir.
Maybe not so much to like add on, but elaborate on number 5, identify opportunities for workforce, low-income, and farm worker housing. Just want to like really drive home the farm worker housing component, because there's this cyclical thing, an annual perennial issue with particularly with farm workers, and that they're consistently in the off season have these housing situations in which we know they're not working, we know they're not generating income. So to the extent possible, the city can tie in industry and or workforce partners to kind of develop a strategy or plan to how to address it.
And that's a very complicated issue,
Yeah.
but I know, and I've had conversations with your city manager about it, that that's something he is thinking about and finding solutions. So did you want to add anything to that? But thank you for mentioning that.
Mayor, you know what, number 6 says we encourage the development of ADUs, which is fantastic. But with every good is a bad. To the fire chief's point, we're putting, to slow down the traffic and what was it called?
Traffic calming.
Traffic calming. But as I see ADUs coming up in our neighborhoods, my God, the congestion with the vehicles. So I don't know, we're doing a great thing for housing, but yet, look what's happening to the quality of life is going even lower. And again, we don't have control over that, but it is happening.
No, that's a terrific point, having recently sat on the planning commission as well. So question, as you go through slides, or is this the part to jump in? We really do need to think about parking and quality of life, because that is an across-the-board residential concern throughout the city.
I think I have parking in another slide, but I put it here so that I make sure that we
Well,
do
yeah, 'cause it'll
it.
go along with
And part of this too is like, maybe there's some blanket way of knowing that all of that includes all the impacts, right? Everything is a domino effect.
Yeah.
We had a long conversation about, people having their adult children living with them, so all of a sudden you have multiple cars. I know I have that at my own home, and so we have 4 cars instead of 2 cars, and so, yeah, that's very common. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so if I can repeat what's been said, but yeah, that's the tough question that we have to ask ourselves in terms of the accessory dwelling units. I think for every accessory dwelling unit we go up, we're bringing those additional cars into the neighborhood, so that's what's impacting neighborhoods in terms of like now seeing maybe double or maybe triple number of vehicles on cars, which again gets to this other issue of having to do our traffic calming with the bus, which concerns me when I'm hearing the fire chief saying that it's taking, 8 minutes to respond to fire calls when it should be down to 4. So we solved one problem, but are we creating a second or third? And as I'm trying to think more like solution-oriented in terms of us as the city council, the issue that we're really wanting to address here in housing is one, creating the opportunity for development, for farm worker housing, and I'm going to advocate for just our kind of middle working class residents here in Salinas, like families, like our teachers, our educators. We need that combination, right? So our city council really needs to focus on that farm worker housing, low-income housing, and middle working class families and residents.
So some of these things could be addressed by putting kind of a tagline under housing or any of the things that we're doing, that everything that the council wants to do needs to be thoughtful in terms of the potential impacts that it has to residents on the quality of life. So that kind of captures a lot of these things that you are all bringing up, and that's why you were elected, to make thoughtful decisions. So I can wordsmith some of this.
I think the other thing it speaks to is the importance of communication and community engagement, that the folks that you're electing to address these issues on your behalf are going to have to consider these trade-offs. I mean, I think it's important people understand that you know that.
Oh, sure, I'm so sorry.
That trade-offs are often, you know, the way we get one result we want. But so I think it just speaks to communications and community engagement, which, you know, Sophie's doing a great job, but we just need to make sure this is part of the game plan, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm just going to add, as you're giving us this direction, then we talked a lot about our city attorney before keeping us out of legal trouble. Part of the challenge with some of this is we frankly might not have a choice. State law is pushing us in the direction, or has pushed us in that direction, that I think ADUs are now almost by right. Regardless of the parking, I don't think parking comes into the equation. So when we're looking at sort of the balancing act, is then we're looking over public works, what can we do from an infrastructure perspective to be able to support it, right? So that's one of the challenges.
No, you're right about law, but I remember one of Chris's predecessors explaining to us one day that sidewalks no longer were the city's responsibility, they were the owners, to which I said, I'm not running for re-election on that. Sidewalks, not my job.
No, I get that, I'm talking state, not local. Very good.
Just real quick, I don't see, oh wait a minute, collaborate. I saw it, collaborates with partners to effectively address and reduce homelessness. But on that, we need to house them. We need to step out of the box. That vision needs to be there.
And I think that that's part of the concept there. There's no other way to reduce homelessness other than housing.
Housing. But I would see the word housing.
I can certainly add that if that's something you all want.
Thank you.
So, sure, of course.
And Tony, Renee, my only point of that comment was I think this is a council that would say, regardless of what the law says, what we do or don't have to do, we're going to want to take responsibility as best we can for improving the quality of life of our residents. And that was my only point, because I think we all feel that sense of responsibility.
But you know what, thank you, Mayor, to the city manager's point about state mandates, one thing that is in our control as a city is to enforce blight. If you go down District 2, we got inoperable vehicles in every block.
You hold on to that thought for me.
Yeah,
You're going to get there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I got that one for you.
Yeah, I just want to add.
And I'm going to write it down, but we have that, I promise.
Thank you.
I just want to add something for consideration on number 6, encourage the development of ADUs. I think it's encourage and support ADUs. I mean, I think we have a resident here who built an ADU, but gave up on the parking situation despite having space on his parking, on the property to install parking. So as we all talk about the need for parking, I think we need to be able to support those ADUs so they can build parking when they build an ADU. And I know that probably goes through our department, but, you know, I have neighbors telling me that they have a third pad and they still can't park on their own property, and causing more congestion on our road. So I don't know if we can add, you know, if that needs to be support ADUs, but.
Let me talk to the city manager about some ways of framing that so we're capturing it, about, I don't know, I don't have the answer off the top of my head, but I hear you and I hear what you're saying, and it is an issue, and I get that, but state law is state law, and so we have to find that balance of how we need that. Anything else on this? Okay. Will you click for me? Thank you. Okay, infrastructure. And I appreciated what your public works director said, that don't forget everything comes back to him to get done. So thank you for your hard work. So again, this is a long list, but I think they're important topics. So talking about the gateways at city entry points, that was a carryover from your past strategic plan. I didn't hear anybody talk about that, but if that's something you want to keep doing, leave it on. I heard a lot about sidewalks and streets and potholes. You're not alone. You're not the only city that struggles with this. Unfortunately, it's, you know, by the time you get one side of the city done, you got to start all over again. What I did here is making sure that the city is communicating those accomplishments out and efforts out. So I know that's something the city manager cares about. Safety, lighting, heard about that. I know that's important, so that is a priority. Street sweeping, again, helping keep the city clean, getting litter picked up. I know, Jay, no, listen. Using ways to improve the flow of traffic. Salinas has grown. We just heard there's lots of cars. So what is the best way to help with that? Using technology as a solution for that. I heard about the airport, and maybe there's some potentials there, so directing your city manager to look at any opportunities there. Maybe we could park the cars there. Your urban forest management plan, making sure that we're taking good care of our trees and our canopy, and either planting or trimming as needed. And then the last is recreational programs and public facilities, and very impressive to hear what your staff is already doing there. So big list, expensive list, but important list. So anything I missed on this? Anything you like? Okay, sir, yes.
Not necessarily something that's missed, or maybe it's not something that necessarily needs to be explicitly called out as a goal, but to whatever extent possible, the city doing as much work in-house rather than looking towards contracting out. So how do we, like, establishing a plan to upskill and build that workforce within public works that can do more of this work, right? So if they need new machinery, or I literally don't know anything about construction, so like we need one of those machines to pave a road, right? Like, let us know, right? How do we build that in-house capacity so we don't need a contract tax?
And I think every city struggles with this. Obviously, they're both cost money. In-house, meaning hiring more people, there's a cost to that. There's training, there's benefits, there's long-term retirement benefits that you have to pay. So there's a cost that goes along with hiring a person, and then there's a cost of doing a contract. And so I know your professional staff, your city manager, they weigh those consequences out of either one. I hear what you want to use it in-house folks as much, but at some point, how do you get extra projects done? And a lot of times, capital projects are exactly that. So I don't know if you have anything you want to know.
Oh, yeah, just want to expand on the infrastructure. You know, I think there's number 5, it says innovative ways to technology to improve the flow of traffic. But I think as we realize the amount of sidewalks and streets and potholes is not going to get any easier. So maybe we can include innovation or creativity in the way we tackle some of those. I don't know when the last time we reviewed the way we do potholes.
Do you have a pavement management? So do you have a pavement management system?
I'm more talking about the way we, what kind of technology we're using, or creative methods that there may be out there that necessarily are pavement management.
Got it.
You know, that's a very good point there, because Mr. Jacobs, there for a while, because it was an emergency, it was raining very hard, but your crews were out there, trying to fix the potholes, but as the rain came, I mean, it got even worse, so I don't know how much money we spent on that project. Again, it was a needed, thing, we needed to do it, but my God, it backfired on us, we spent a lot of money.
But then again, it's the balance, because if you don't do it, someone's driving in the rain, they hit the pothole.
To Councilmember Sandoval's point here, we need to strategize. If Channel 8 is telling us, hey, the storm is coming, well, you know what, guys, we better get out there before the rain gets here. But we were actually doing the work while it was raining. A lot of, but Mr. Jacobs is a good guy. I like him.
And maybe this will come up, but I think relative to infrastructure, because at some level, this is, you know, it's either one or two, but this is probably the most critical issue facing the city, this whole issue of infrastructure. And it's going to require some communication to the community, the magnitude of what our backlog is, married to what the opportunities we have in front of us. And so it's fine to be project-driven, but we need to strategically understand that if we want housing, where are we relative to water and that type of thing. So we have to communicate the magnitude of the issue. And very, very frankly, in terms of, you know, and if you look at infrastructure, there's a residential component, there's a commercial component, and there's an industrial component in terms of preparing for the future. And the residential piece is absolutely critical because, for instance, if we're trying to preserve Measure G in the future, if we're not doing a satisfactory job in terms of customer service, responsiveness, timely response on a sidewalk or communication where you are in the queue, that's going to be a problem. So the magnitude, the communication, but I think the other thing besides the city in terms of infrastructure, all of us sit on other boards, and those other boards have taxing authority that impact our residents. And so I think we also have to assess, you know, what are the other components of infrastructure that necessarily don't hit our bottom line, but will hit our residents. You know, your sewage bill just went up, and here's why. The council didn't do it, but we're sitting on a JPA that did do it. So I think we have to understand the whole breadth of infrastructure-related costs that this city is going to have to be ready to absorb, because there are other agencies that are going to impact that. So I think we need a financial assessment of what's in front of us. So communication, broader assessment, I think is going to be.
So are you asking to add anything to this, or that was just
Well,
sort of background?
Well, it's more than background. I mean, that there needs to be a number 9. What other entities do we participate in that impact either the city financially and our residents? You know, because those are hard infrastructure, and those ones are big ticket items. That one ain't, it's $150,000 to do the sidewalk.
Okay, maybe, how about the city manager and I put our heads together on how to best frame that? I hear you.
So when I think of infrastructure, you know, I'm typically thinking about streets, water systems, energy, transportation, communication systems, and green spaces, right? So as I'm looking at this, I think what I'm not seeing is energy and where we want to, where do we position ourselves in terms of energy, albeit, you know, do we want to see what we can do as a city to bring in like additional solar? So for example, I mean, we have our parks, we have our recreation centers, you know, is there an opportunity to install solar on some of our existing facilities? I'm also thinking in terms of generating revenue, right? And I know that, you know, I know a lot of people, you know, nobody likes taxes, nobody wants to tax, but if there's an opportunity to install like solar panels and have the ability to sell energy to, you know, adjacent neighborhoods, is that something that we want to get into as a source of generating revenue for the city, right? Because again, nobody likes taxes, but you know, how can we be creative in that manner as it relates to energy? The other thing I'm thinking of.
Can I answer that real quick so we can just make sure we wrap that up? that making sure that we approach projects and using, just like we talked about using technology to do things the best way, designing things that are resilient. And I think that captures that. Again, resiliency is the strategic plan of the council. How that resiliency gets implemented is something that the city manager does, whether it's for solar or microgrids or whatever.
Well, I think the add-on is, can we explore, can infrastructure create a financial opportunity for the community?
But I hear you, thank you.
Yeah. And the last one being, in terms of like citywide communication systems, coming from disaster preparedness, doing disaster preparedness.
We're gonna get there.
We're gonna get there, right?
It's
under blight.
It's next to blight.
That takes us to communications, right? So, as a city council, we always have to, plan for the worst, hope for the best, and we never know where we're gonna have that next, big earthquake, right? And so one thing that I would want to make sure that we have in place is a communication system that is going to meet the needs. So, Wi-Fi and where we're at regarding.
Hang on to that, my friend. Hang on to that. We're going to get there, and that's important. Blight, you want to talk about blight? No, no. Yes.
Quick comment. I think this might go under item number 8, but recently the Salinas City High School District approved 2 facility bonds that are going to bring in millions of dollars. So to whatever extent we're able to leverage those dollars with any projects we're doing or timing, being strategic about the timing of delivery of certain projects to maximize their impact rate, they're going to be building additional facilities. So to whatever extent we're also able to establish a joint use agreement for any future facilities.
Yep, I got that coming too. There's a lot to come. Let's move on. Miscellaneous things that we heard of. If you don't like the name of it, we could change it. This was just a suggestion on my part, kind of a common strategic plan title. So I heard about the general plan, so we want to continue working on that. Equity plan, meeting some of your values. Making sure we have that. Always want to have a balanced general fund budget and robust reserves. Streamlined permitting, we heard about that and the importance of that and making sure that it is easy and, again, transparent for your folks to come in and get permits that they need. Expand and enhance economic development services. So that, I know we talked about the first slide, but I do have that captured here. Communication efforts, I told you I had you. Engaging neighborhoods, again, that's part of the transparency. How do we get input from our community, from our neighborhoods? What do they actually need? And delivering services that are specific to those needs. And then I heard about and on the last plan, the city volunteer programs and making sure that we are engaging and encouraging volunteer programs. So, anything you want to add? Do you like city services? Does that feel right to you all? Okay, good.
I just have a quick comment on number 6. I know we're getting ready to build a city hall state of the art, but the last one, the old one, as you're walking in, people get lost. I mean, they don't know where to go or what's going on. It used to be great when, as soon as you come to City Hall, not see a security guard, but actually a staff member that can be helpful. And that's part of communication, as you're talking, Mayor. When you walk in City Hall, there's somebody to greet you. How can I help you? You go this way, you go that way. But right now, as it stands, you go in there and people get lost.
Great use for a volunteer.
No, I don't like volunteers. Oh. So, but do you see what I'm saying, Mayor? Before, you used to see the city clerk's office smiling faces as you walked into City Hall. You saw human beings. You know what? Security guards are okay, but when you see somebody that knows where to direct you, and when we get this new City Hall, you walk in, and you'll see what I'm saying. There's no one there to. You just gotta find your way up.
Now I gotta take the mic away from him to stop him from talking.
Thank you.
I hear you, and I'm sure the city manager has noted that and making sure that it's designed appropriately for the public.
Thank you. City street sweepers, I feel like that was one that might fit better. Improve city street sweeping efforts, that's number 4. Infrastructure Does that fall more under 4? Does it fall under next? I would
Whatever you want.
advocate
You
that
guys
it fall
get to
under
Move
city
it?
services.
Okay, so move street sweepings to
City services.
city.
At our last strategic planning session a couple of years ago, we talked about having a central communications plan where everything was being funneled through, one department, our point of our PIO. But I kind of heard the chief give a little bit that they're having a communications person through their department. So at the time, the council's direction was to have everything funneled through one, so we'd have one unified message. Is that something we're working towards, or will it still be kind of departmentalized?
So, great question. Yes, we are working on a centralized communication plan. Having a resource in departments like police department, it's a sort of best practice model. That doesn't mean they're disconnected. So for example, I came from an agency where the PD had a PIO, worked with the central communication, which is Sophie's counterpart in Watsonville. So that would still occur. So we are going to be united and strategic. There's just so much stuff that needs to be communicated that it's hard to keep up. So it's almost like having one centralized resource, but we have an office in the police department, we have an office in City Hall. So that's going to continue. The communication plan will be, we are working on finalizing it, and I'll come back, just as an information item to the council.
And just to echo what the city manager said, that is very common practice. There's so much information coming out of a police department or even a fire department. And a lot of time that is very emergent, important information to get out immediately. So for the public safety offices to push that out, and then that message can be repeated by the general communications of the city, so. And
Well, I'm not sure if this is going to fall under city services, but it says enhance the city communication efforts. Does that cover like interpretation? I know in the past the city council had wanted interpretation for all our council meeting, all our public meetings, and then just like the folks who are here today who are receiving Spanish interpretation, the rest of our residents who do not attend these meetings do not have that same access. So would we request, for example, our interpreters to simultaneously transmit the Spanish translation on our YouTube channels or things like that, or at what point would we have that conversation?
When we bring stuff back, we'll have that conversation. Now, the other thing is technology, AI, artificial intelligence, is giving a lot of opportunities. For example, the city of Modesto now is using AI in a lot of their translation to broaden the reach of AI. To broaden the reach of translation services to all languages needed. So I think that's all going to be part of that evaluation. So it's not necessarily just bodies, it's more using technology as well in this space.
So my comment would be on expanding the way we deliver city services in general. Largely kind of like, for example, when the Permanent Center at our last update mentioned that they're having like days in which people can go in person to address, certain types of permits or certain types of issues. Let's not just have that, in South Salinas. Can we have that, a day where we have that over in East Salinas in partnership with one of the schools or, one of the business centers, or can we have it in North Salinas, expanding the way that we deliver services?
I think I missed the first part of your issue, where you can go get services.
Yeah, expand the way we deliver services, whether that's having like a mobile permit center day, or having like a mobile unit that, if you have a business license you need to update, all right, well, we're gonna be in East Salinas, so you don't have to come all the way out to City Hall to make that trip.
So if there's consensus on that, what I would grab that is evaluate the use of mobile city services. There's going to be a cost with that for sure, because you've got to get a mobile unit, you need computers, you need to tie into the city's main servers in order to issue those permits. That's a staff person or 2 staff people. So I would suggest, if the council wants that as an item, that the city manager assess that as part of the budget. That would be public safety. So very important, and thank you to both your chiefs for being here. As As an aside, a lot of the work that I do is in emergency preparedness and disaster response and recovery. I'm currently helping with the recovery from LA fire. So it's very top of my mind, and I know it was something we all talked about. So encouraging emergency preparedness and resilience through your community. There's kind of several parts to that. One is making sure that the council knows what to do in the event of a disaster, that your city staff knows what to do and is able to stand up an emergency operations center. You're in amazing hands with not only your city manager, who has a lot of experience in that, but your public safety officials as well, who will take good care of the community. But then it leaves the residents and the business community, and making sure that as local government leaders, we have done everything we can to prepare them, to make sure they understand how they get messages or alerts, where they go for information before, during, and after a disaster, and how can they care for themselves and their neighborhood and their loved ones. And so that is put on to talk about that. So I'm assuming everyone wants that, and the city manager will find some great ways of doing it. Great. Okay, maintaining appropriate staffing in your police and fire departments. You have amazing sworn personnel and fire officials, and I know that everyone is committed to keeping that. Community policing, I heard your police chief talk about that, so making sure we're continuing that. Abandoned vehicles, so I know that was an issue, and making sure we're getting those moved along. Code enforcement.
Can I ask a question about that real quick?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna ask the chief of police if I may. There's a van with a trailer on Schilling Place, 13 Schilling Place. It was tagged December 14th of 24 by the SPD, and it's still there. I'm just curious, because I've seen other vehicles tagged in the neighborhoods, so I don't know what the process is. I mean, this has been over 2 months. And I know everybody's busy, and this is not a criticism. This is just trying to find a system that works. Because we have a lot of abandoned vehicles. You know, we're talking about ADUs not finding parking. Well, there's a lot of abandoned vehicles, inoperable vehicles in our public streets, in our neighborhoods. Hundreds of them. And you know what? As hard as the staff is working, you look at our neighborhoods and it seems like we're not even making a dent. So I would like to look for a solution on that, because it is a serious problem. And in the same neighborhoods, I know of 3 ADUs that are being built right now, very close to each other. But then I see these inoperable vehicles that have been there weeks, maybe some of them months. You mentioned the state law is state law, but city law, we have ordinances that we can enforce. And if the police can't do it because they're busy on emergency calls, we need to figure out a system, who we can hire that is able to do the same work, where it doesn't keep law enforcement from doing their job.
Thank you, and I think hopefully the wording of enhance the program captures your concern.
Yeah, it'd probably be helpful for us to get a presentation or an email about what our abatement program looks like, because I don't remember seeing the specific thing on that. But where it says expand code enforcement efforts, I'm assuming that means more code enforcement officers, but I'd like to include expand and strategize on code enforcement efforts, because it's not just about getting more, but necessarily how we do that. And also, when we talk about public safety...
Sorry, can you repeat what you wanted?
I think it would be expand and strategize what would be code enforcement efforts. And as we talk about public safety, I think that as Councilmember De La Rosa spoke to earlier, I think lighting is a big, something that should be included in public safety, because lighting will shed light on a lot of things that shouldn't be there. So I don't know.
I have lighting under city services. You want that in public safety?
I think it's important to include that as part of our public safety plan.
So move lighting to public safety.
I think it's more so being called out explicitly in all these different things, rather than having it be under one specific.
Yeah, I think it's just highlighting the importance. Yeah, thank you, Councilman Ward.
Calls out.
I'm going to make a statement. We encourage, right now, presently, our community to report via Salinas Connect. But Salinas Connect wasn't working, and so our residents get really frustrated because they're told one thing and then it doesn't work. Or they don't know how to use it, and there's people that do educate other people to learn how to use Salinas Connect, because that's what you're told. Report it through Salinas Connect, anything. But if Salinas Connect isn't working, it's not functioning, we need to look at that. That's very important.
4 and 5, I think just speak to the importance of code enforcement, and, it comes out of the police side, but it also comes out of Lisa's group as well. And I think just kind of an overall review of code enforcement in general. And that, just like we had a really terrific presentation a couple weeks ago, I think, to Andrew's point, I think we need a review of code enforcement in general in terms of how the city does it. And my very quick example was the first time I was the mayor, and Gloria will remember this, we determined we needed X amount of officers, and we hired them, and they were all supposed to work between 8 and 5 Monday through Friday, but the problems are all between 5 and 8 Monday through Friday and on weekends. And so, so there's the issue of who does what, and then do we have coverage, and then what's the optimum number of folks we need to do it. So I think this would be a priority for the council in general. So we just ought to look at code enforcement and then get updated on that.
My one specific request would be to explicitly call out working to address the issue of prostitution in Salinas. I think that's a very big community concern that, although we are, actively addressing it, I think I'd like to see it explicitly called out so that, in 2-3 years, we are kind of able to give ourselves, a letter grade or a report card on what we've actually done to specifically address that issue.
Is that a consensus, or do we want to talk about
Yeah,
that?
it's a consensus, but you know what, to his point, the police department, along with DA's office and Marina Police, did an exceptional job. There was a 3-day operation out there. I overheard the mayor said he went on a police ride-along some days after that, everything was peaceful. Man, if we could just do that locally, how would that work? And like the chief said, they can't be out there 24 hours. But if we can develop a system where we discourage the customer from going out there, and if they move, we follow them. But whatever worked in those 3 days, it was successful. So my question is, why can't we just continue doing it?
And I'll work with the city manager and the police chief to properly frame that, because I think there are other illegal activities that we could capture under a title, but thank you for bringing that up.
I think it's public safety, but Wes brought it up today about the sweeps, that we have a more comprehensive program that's humane, and I don't know if it fits under public safety or...
Is this for unhoused?
Yeah,
or
yeah, for unhoused, yes, because we have a policy, I guess, or procedure, but it's not always followed. So I'd like to see that be under public safety to some degree. And maybe that's what prostitution could bring together.
I mean, it's totally up to you. We did talk about the unhoused in the housing section, but that certainly, again, the big category is address the issue. How it gets done is a task done by the city manager. If we start calling out every single one of these, we're going to end up with very lengthy strategic plan goals, and I'm trying to keep us high level, but we hear you.
Mine's on the education, because we're talking about prostitutes, and I want more of a collaboration with the public health department. They need to give those statistics that they have right now for our county on sexually transmitted diseases, and maybe we can do some type of program, educational program out there, so that, because everybody wants to put it under the carpet, but it's happening, and men and women need to know how to protect themselves. Do you really want to take this disease back home? And we've forgotten about that, like, you know what I mean, because remember we worked in all that. So maybe we could do some kind of partnership with the county.
I would just like to
Not that it's going to solve it.
Councilor Barajas, how would we include that as one of our priorities? Because I think it's important to note the prostitution. So how would we include that, or how do you foresee that listed on there?
So if you can
Prostitution.
give me some grace as I work with the city manager before we come back next time. I hear you, I've written it down, and find some ways to frame it as a strategic plan that allows the city manager to come up with some solutions and outreach programs and working with your regional partners.
I'm sure we're already doing this, but I think it would just be important to have it in our strategic plan document. In terms of public safety collaboration, I don't know if we want to use the word collaborate or communicate or both with our partnering, law enforcement. So sheriffs and CHP, and I used to do some work with the alcohol beverage control, ABC, and so maybe having that captured somewhere in there, that we're committed to continuing to collaborate and communicate with other law enforcement agencies. That would be Monterey County Sheriff's Department, California Highway Patrol. I know that California Highway Patrol, that they've responded to calls here. They said that they would never say no if they have to. And then also we have our local department of alcohol beverage control.
So what he was asking is to add something that is continue to collaborate with your partner agencies. That's something we want to add, or that kind of goes without saying. I know
they're doing it.
the chief certainly talked about your mutual aid.
Right.
We do that already. It's explicit that we're constantly collaborating, working together. Oftentimes, we're called for mutual aid more so than we're asking for help. So, being an equal partner in the law enforcement arena with CHP, I meet with them regularly. We meet with all the county chiefs once a month. So we continually work on whether it's project-oriented enforcement, operational things, and needs of their organization are. So we work that, and we do that already.
And I think you'll see, council member, as you attend more and more council meetings, that you'll hear those reports from your police chief about those activities. So hopefully that'll help.
That's where I began my comment. I know that we're doing it, but we don't know how to capture it, right? So a general member of the public who picks up our strategic plan should be able to read, if they don't know our city, like, oh, okay, this is something that they're already doing, that they're committing to do, and that they put in writing.
So I'm however you all want to frame that, if that's important, if you think it's something that's missing, up to you. Renee, did you want to answer?
Yeah, just very briefly, we'll work with the chief how to best capture it. But I think what I'm hearing is, as we have these high-level goals, is what are we doing underneath them, right? So I think one of the things would be adopt the plan, and then we could come back with the task and everything. So it doesn't get too sort of messy, which I think we're trying to simplify it. And then the other thing, that we need to do a better job of developing the dashboard to track these goals. So that's one of the commitments here. So that's, I think, to the extent we can be refined and high level, then we can sort of use the dashboard and reporting back to the community how we're, reporting back to you and i.e. the community how we're doing. That's going to come as well. And Sophie and our team have been working on how to best track these goals. So we hear you.
Yeah, my comment would just be on, I think that's a little bit more prescriptive rather than directive in terms of like a strategic plan, like goal. I don't think it's necessarily a strategic, at least to me personally, just citing that out specifically doesn't necessarily feel like a goal that we're necessarily working towards, because it's something that's kind of embedded into the nature of the work that our law enforcement partners already do. So that's just largely a comment on as much.
One of the things that just occurred to me is we have listed as our values that we uphold ourselves to. It's always doing things legally, for example, right? That's never a question, that everything we're going to do is legally. I think the other thing I'm hearing is that you want to make sure you're doing things that are as technologically forward-thinking as possible, and as, working with your partners as much as possible. So I think those are kind of the broad values that we share in everything. No matter what task you're trying to do, you want to work with your strategic partners, whether it's the school district who has funding or the CHP or whomever it might be. So I think those are kind of the baseline that we agree upon. So again, youth and seniors, unusual to have them lumped together, but that's how we're doing it. We could certainly change that or leave it up to you. We want to improve and develop youth and senior facilities. I heard about there's field space and facility space with the schools, and that maybe there's an opportunity to open some of that up to use for the general public. very common practice by a lot of cities to enter into a joint use agreement to do that. So it's a great way of taking advantage of existing facilities. Want to increase the number of community events. And then partner with regional stakeholders to improve access to the arts. That's a great way of saying what I was trying to say a minute ago, partnering with your stakeholders. So,
you know what, and I think the staff is doing a great job with youth and senior facilities. My question is, as we improve, for example, playgrounds, sometimes I'll go to the playground at Council Park and there's some derogatory remarks with graffiti and all that. So I'm thinking about, maybe the staff's already doing it. You know, I know we have 50-something parks, but I would venture to see somebody to say, hey, well, you know what, I want to go through this park and see what needs to be touched up on. Just be consistent on it. I reported at the basketball area for Gloucester Park, which is one of the most utilized basketball areas in the city. But there's a fence, a part of the fence that has been broken for over 2 years. I've reported it. In my job, I'm thinking, well, I'll just get some duct tape and just fix it, but it hasn't gotten fixed. And the reason I'm bringing that up, it's such a simple thing to fix, but yet it hasn't gotten fixed. Whether it's a playground that's got derogatory graffiti, you know, somebody, and I don't know, we're short-staffed here, but you would think somebody would go through the parks and see what needs to get done. The little things. Senior facilities, to be there. You know, Firehouse is a beautiful place. I know that the chief and I were there on Valentine's Day. Just to make sure that their facilities are being taken care of. Going back to communication. And I think as we do those things, we develop relationships. You know, the bathroom at Gloucester Park at the Recreation Center, which is now going to get fixed, but it's been years that children haven't been able to use that bathroom. So I'm just talking about things like that. Whatever facilities that we can really focus on that can't get fixed, we need to jump on that.
and remember too, you're the eyes and the ears for your city manager and your city staff, so make sure you just let them know. I guarantee if you told that to a city manager that something needed to get fixed, it would get fixed. Probably Monday. It's on Monday's list.
I remember the last strategic planning session, I think we talked about that too, was do we have a facilities management and upkeep plan and checklist as far as, you know, are we quarterly checking each park for the following items? Maybe we can get an update on that, because I think sometimes residents say, well, we reported, how often do you check that park? Or how often is that park being cleaned? So that information would be very helpful. And for number 3, I think it's something I've talked with the city manager and our parks department, is having those community events across all our districts. You know, the Santa Rita area is a very densely populated area. We don't have a lot of green spaces. Actually, we have a very small park in that area. And so despite our small park size, because of planning and whatever happened, it's still important to have those community events across our city. So I'd like to, increase community events, maybe equitably across our city would be great.
It's my understanding that the city was exploring a youth council, to my understanding. It looks like it's a yes. What's kind of the status of that, and what was kind of their role going to be?
Yes, we have been in conversation with the Salinas Union High School District, with the superintendent, so we do have a plan moving forward. So in the next month or so, we should be ready to start recruiting on that. We have a pretty good foundation to get it kicked off in the next several months.
And then what exactly are they advising on? Does like any economic issue, what issues are they kind of advising on? Is it just economic issues or issues that the city aims to be relevant to youth?
No, so I think, so a couple of things. One, we want to empower them to be able to identify opportunities for the city and bring that information to the council, but then also to pay attention to the council agenda and things that are relevant to youth, be able to provide their commentary and feedback, and again, to work with the council and have that open line of communication.
Typically, those agendas and those priorities change. What I have seen with youth commissions or youth councils is they come up with their own innovative ideas and bring them forward, and it's sort of empowering them to think of it as opposed to us saying, you think about solving this. They say, like, from our perspective, it's X.
I guess my comment would then, or request would then be to specifically call out engagement of our youth. Like, I'm thinking particularly in relation as we're adopting our general plan update and the East Area specific plan. These are things that, you know, I'm gonna get to see build up, hopefully. But a lot of these kids, you know, don't really understand or know that, you know, this is the lived and built environment that they're gonna inherit, or, you know, grow up in or come back to Salinas and, you know, have to raise their families in. So to whatever extent we're able to, you know, explicitly call that, I don't know if that's here or if that gets included under the communications plan or element, but, you know, being more deliberate and intentional about engaging our youth and what they want to see for the future. Because I know there's a big generational difference between someone who's 26 and 13 and someone who's 26 and 40 or
Watch it.
I hear you, and I'll find some way of
Do I need to start advocating for the senior?
Mine's real quick. We need a bathroom in Hebron Heights. And I love Kristen and her staff, and she listened to me with this concern, because in Hebron Heights, the bathroom coming down the hill on the Hebron side, not in the Madera, that bathroom has not been functional. So we want our families to continue to walk and be healthy, and especially in that area where there's a lot of families in Laurel Heights.
Yeah.
We need to look at the future of either revitalizing the bathroom that's there now, or looking for the funding to get a bathroom in that area, because you have to go to Madera, the other side, to use the bathroom. You got a lot of seniors there. Yeah. Let me tell you, our bladders don't hold. No, really. So we have to make things accessible for our community. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, that bladder, boy, you better watch.
The young and the old have that in common. Again, I don't think that has to be on our strategic plan. I think we have in there improve and develop youth and senior facilities, and I'm sure your city manager heard that and has made note of that.
Yeah, I do think that, I mean, it does probably need to be in there in some aspect, because District 5, I think we have one park that has restrooms. Wow. So as you guys all want to improve your parks, I mean, we have Santa Rita Park. There's a gentleman who, Jesus Rodriguez, Jesus Valenzuela's dad, father-in-law actually opens his house so they can use the restroom there. Because we don't have a park in Santa Rita area, Soto Park. So I think evaluating parks across our city and making sure that they have access to restrooms is really important. I remember coaching at Northgate Park. I'll be really quick, but you know, kids sometimes would have to leave practice because there was no restroom anywhere nearby. So I think that incorporating restrooms in this conversation needs to happen, because I've heard council members over the years say, "Well, fix the restroom here," and I'm all like, "Let me have a restroom." So I think, you know, if there is consensus, I'd like to add restrooms as part of youth and seniors.
So maybe what we can do is add it into number 1 in an appropriate way. It's also an opportunity when your city budget comes back and the capital projects are listed out that Renee could add that.
So, we're hearing you. I would really resist the temptation to get that detailed, but hold us accountable to what we bring back in the budget and future plans. Then you'll decide, you'll make those decisions based on allocation of resources. We'll give a recommendation. Then if it's not happening and we need to revisit, like Reva mentioned, we can look at the plan every 6 months, we can look at the plan every year, every quarter, whatever that is, and if we need to update the plan to be that specific, then we can be that specific. But I think at this point, it would be great to say, here's your priorities, let us bring back this in the budget and future planning. I know Kristen has we have a Parks Master Plan already, so maybe bring that back as we're forming the budget recommendations and CIP recommendations for the future. But so I hear you. I hear the sort of equitable distribution, resource allocation, all of those things come into play for all of these goals, all of these strategic direction.
So just like we talked about, kind of that underlying value, we're going to add making sure there's restrooms everywhere as a value. No, I'm kidding. You have a comment?
So what I'm hearing then is after the adoption of the strategic plan, we can come to you with the details.
Yes, or you
Alright.
can come back to us.
So you can bring forward items and as a council direct the staff, but your budget process,
It's like 2 years old. We shouldn't be in that.
your budget process is the opportunity for the council as the whole to give those task items to your staff.
And then maybe one more comment. I know that we had this conversation about 2 weeks ago, but youth and seniors very important. But I was thinking, do we want to wordsmith this and have it say youth to seniors? Because at the end of the day, it's all residents that we're serving, right? As a city council, from youth to seniors, very important. But I want to make sure that we're not like unintentionally making a particular population feel left out, and that's families, right? Like the parents, right, who take their probably youth to everything as well as seniors. But my district, we have a lot of families, and so how do we become a more family-oriented city? I know that we do that through our parks and recs, but just in terms of wordsmithing, I just want to throw that 2 cents out there.
So I struggled with this, and I had thought of quality of life as a title. We could certainly do youth, seniors, and families. It's really whatever feels right to you all and captures everything, so. Youth to seniors, youth, seniors, and families. Do I hear any take?
Well, my 2 cents on if we're gonna rename it, would that also entail changing the goals, since we're if we're including families, and that changes the nature of this, right? You're suddenly taking away, the purpose of it is to specifically call out our youth and seniors, right? They have very specific needs, very unique needs, and they're typically, if once we start including families, then, it takes resources away from your youth and seniors, right? There's a more mouths with the same pie that we're splitting up, right? So my 2 cents is I'd be kind of hesitant to kind of add that in, because this is intentionally for our youth and our seniors.
Well, youth to seniors certainly captured that.
Yeah, but even the name, right, youth to seniors, right, you're kind of intentionally kind of lumping in like, bring in everyone else, which we are serving everyone else, and the whole point of calling them out is because we know that they have specific, unique needs that need to be addressed,
Totally up to the council, so.
So one of the things that I probably forgot to mention, particularly around facilities and parks, is as Salinas continues to grow, Salinas doesn't necessarily, I think Salinas, one thing that we could really use is like our own version of our Central Park. I know we have one that's literally named Central Park, that's pretty nice and great, but kind of dreaming big, right? We have Natividad Creek Park, which is this large park. How do we be strategic and redevelop that? And I bring that up, an example of that is out in Tulsa, Oklahoma, there's something called the Gathering Place, which is a public-private partnership to develop some public lands that were along the riverbank. And they built this, massive public space. It has, water workstations, because it gets hot in Oklahoma over the summers. It has an indoor community center that's 2 stories, and there's opportunities for small businesses to go in there. They have coffee shops that are local and things like that. So one thing, maybe not necessarily specifically call out, but start planning for that future. What's Salinas' next big project in terms of parks in particular, and how do we leverage our private partners and nonprofit partners and philanthropy to achieve that?
So I heard your city manager talk about your parks master plan. It sounds like that's going to be coming back to the council for a presentation or a review as part of the next processes. So I would hold on to that thought, and that would be a great time for that. Also, your city budget, when you're talking about capital projects, that would be a great time to introduce something.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the discussion, but as you saw coming up in your council meeting on Tuesday, we're accepting Car Lake. So some of those pieces, that was just a major park resource that we could probably also dream big about.
You know what, to the mayor's point about communication, I'm gonna add a word, consistency. I did a police ride-along with Sergeant Magana, awesome public servant. But he took his police car and set the park. There's a driveway in there. And it is amazing how many people live in those bushes. And one of the things that I was thinking of, and you know what, the way he dealt with these people, awesome social worker. The guy's fantastic. I hope we can hire a bunch of those Magañas. But as he was talking, he says, Tony, this is a safe place for a lot of these people because they don't want to be in Chinatown. These are not your drug addicts. They're not. Some of these people go out to work in the morning. And you know what? People come out of the woodwork, especially when they know it's Magaña, just to say hi. But to the council member's point, that park is so awesome that we've gone in there, and you know, sometimes when I use the word consistency, we've done some great work in cleaning up some of these parks. But then we stop. We just let it go, and then the graffiti comes back, and we're more reactive than proactive. And again, there's justifiable reasons for that. Carr Lake, I don't know, we spent, I think, over $1 million just to clean it up, but look how beautiful it looks right now. But I think to that, and I want to commend the staff, man, there's been a lot of great work done here. But I think if we're consistent when we're going to tackle something, if we can figure out a way how to be consistent, whether it be through volunteers, through partners, that place is beautiful. But you know what, a lot of people don't want to go there because it feels unsafe just walking through there. But we can fix it. So to that, I think there's a lot of great places. Where I am concerned, maintenance. You know, I know we're getting ready to get this park, but sometimes because of lack of staff, maybe lack of resources, sometimes we don't do a good job of maintenance. In my mind, maintenance, as soon as we see the first tent coming up, to White's point of being humane, and he's right, to try to discourage that. But you know what we do? We wait till there's 20 or 30 tents, and then we go out and we got to get it before it begins and try to get social workers, get mental health involved. Again, a lot of work, a lot of partnerships, not easy, but I think we can get there. Thank you.
I think at our last strategic planning session, and I think with support of Councilor Barrero, we talked about sanctioned encampments, possible tiny home village. I know we had bigger, broader goals. I just want to point those things out as conversations we've had in the past. We didn't really talk about a whole lot about transparency, things like I know we mentioned our public portal, but just want to piggyback on it, like increasing the transparency by making our public portal, all the documents requested on there public. I was a little caught off guard, like for example, this public meeting, thank goodness for Wes, but we're not live streaming or recording this meeting. These are important conversations we had today, and only those that were able to attend are able to listen to those, except thanks to Wes. I think those need to be kind of ingrained in our policies, or just be the way we do things. I think we should also capture things that other cities have. I look at Soledad, I think they live stream their public meetings on Facebook and Instagram, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for things like that. And I just want to highlight again that we have an opportunity to post our meetings in English and in Spanish. We already have the interpretation available, so why not extend those so residents who can attend can listen later on when they're not working.
And I think I heard your city manager say that's something that is in the queue and working on, and particularly using technology to increase some of them. So.
One thing would probably be like formalizing the way that the council's able to bring forward projects. Like you mentioned, right now we have a buddy system, which is great. I love having buddies, but I don't think as a city that's a very formal way of doing that and tracking that, right? At the board of supervisors level, they have a formal way, you submit a request, you have the second or third from X supervisor, or in this case council member, and then that's a public list that's tracked at every agenda, right? That's a list of like, what are the issues, where is it at, where is it in the queue, did it get accepted, is it being addressed, what is the outcome? So developing a matrix that's both available and accessible to the council members, but also the public, right? That kind of holds all council members accountable on what are we actually doing, right? What is each one of us kind of driving and moving forward?
your city manager nodded, so I'm sure that'll be taken care of. Well, I want to thank you for trusting me to help you talk through these really important things for your city, and I'm looking forward to thinking it all through and making sure I bring back a good comprehensive list in a month and we get another shot at it. In the meantime, thank you, and thank you all to the public for coming, and enjoy your weekend.
Yeah.